Both girls were crying. He only moved toward one of them. Nobody understood why until the blood results came back. The thing about having 2 children under 3 is that you develop, out of pure survival necessity, a sorting system for distress. Crying does not automatically mean emergency. You learn in the first exhausting months to triage by quality rather than volume, by pitch, by duration, by whether the crying is the kind that wants something or the kind that comes from somewhere that has no name yet. Valentina Reyes had this system. She had built it across 3 years of 2 daughters, Camila, 32 months, who were different in the way siblings can be different when they share genetics and nothing else about how they move through the world. Camila was theatrical about everything. Rosa was quieter, and when she cried, it was always less obvious and more serious. And Valentina had calibrated herself to this the way parents calibrate themselves to the specific frequencies of their specific children. She had not calibrated it as accurately as their English bulldog, Bruno. Bruno was 5 years old, 63 pounds, a dog who moved through the house with the specific unhurried authority of an animal that has concluded it is where it belongs. He was gentle with both girls, in the way that well-socialized bulldogs are gentle, which is to say, absolutely without exception, as a permanent operating condition rather than a thing he did when he felt like it. When both girls were upset at the same time, which was not rare, Bruno would assess. This was observable. He would stand between them, turn his head left, turn his head right, and then move in one direction. Always the same direction. Always to Rosa. Valentina noticed this for the first time on a Tuesday and chalked it up to proximity. Rosa was usually closer to where Bruno rested. The second time she noticed it, she chalked it up to personality. Perhaps he found Rosa's quieter distress more reachable. The sixth time she noticed it, she stopped chalking it up to anything and started writing it down. Bruno to Rosa. Again. Bruno to Rosa. Camila crying louder. Bruno to Rosa. Rosa barely crying. Camila upset. Bruno. Rosa. 7 times across 3 weeks. 7 times when both girls needed something and Bruno moved without hesitation to the younger one. Subscribe now, because what Valentina did next, and what came back from the lab, is the reason Bruno is different from every other dog in this family's story. She called the pediatrician on a Thursday morning and described it. She said, "I know this sounds like I'm reading too much into my dog's behavior, but he is consistently choosing my younger daughter in situations where my older daughter is more visibly distressed, and I cannot figure out why." The pediatrician, Dr. Anya Christodoulou, had been in practice for 16 years. She had heard in that time approximately everything a parent could say on a phone call. She said, "Has Rosa's eating changed at all?" Valentina thought. She said, "Actually, yes. She's been drinking more water, wanting more juice, a lot more, maybe 3 weeks." Dr. Christodoulou said, "Come in today if you can." Rosa's fasting blood glucose was 342 milligrams per deciliter. The normal ceiling for a toddler is 140. At 342, the body has been in a state of significant hyperglycemia for an indeterminate period. The ketones in Rosa's urine indicated the body had been metabolizing fat as an emergency fuel source, the metabolic state that precedes diabetic ketoacidosis. For what the lab values suggested was several weeks at minimum. Type 1 diabetes, onset silent and gradual, presenting first as thirst, then as fatigue, then, in the next stage Rosa had not yet reached, as the acute crisis that is the way this disease announces itself when it is not caught first. It had not been caught first by any conventional means. It had been caught because a dog moved toward the same child 7 times when both children needed attention, and a mother wrote it down. Has your dog ever shown a preference for one child in your home that you later understood? Tell us below. Every one of these stories deserves to be heard. When blood glucose is elevated, the body produces compounds on the breath and skin that are chemically distinct. Acetone, hydroxybutyrate, organic acids that a human nose cannot detect at the concentrations produced in early hyperglycemia, but that a dog with 250 million olfactory receptors processes as signal rather than background noise. Bruno had not been preferring Rosa. He had been responding to a chemical signature that Camila was not producing. He had been moving, every time, toward the child whose body was producing the smell of something wrong. Dr. Christodoulou said, at the follow-up 2 days after Rosa's diagnosis, in the research on canine diabetes detection, the animals are typically trained for months. Your dog had no training. He had proximity and chemistry and whatever it is that dogs do with those two things. She said, he found it first. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. Subscribe so you never miss the next one. Rosa was discharged with an insulin regimen, a continuous glucose monitor on her upper arm, and a follow-up appointment with a pediatric endocrinologist. She came home on a Saturday afternoon. Bruno was at the door. He pressed his nose to her arm, the arm with the monitor, and held it there for 2 seconds. He looked up at Valentina. She didn't have a word for the expression, but she had seen it in his face before, 7 times before, standing in a room between 2 crying girls, turning his head and choosing. She knelt down on the hallway floor and put her arms around his neck and said something she had never said to a dog before, which was, "I should have asked you sooner." Bruno sat down against her and let her hold him. Camila patted his back from behind with both hands, the vigorous, confident patting of a 3-year-old who has no idea what anything means yet, but understands that this is a moment where patting is appropriate. Rosa, from her car seat that nobody had yet moved to take off her, watched all 3 of them with the steady dark eyes of a child who has just come home and knows it.